Loading Minecraft, Star Wars, and more said you should check out the wikis for Blues Brothers film, Groundhog Day, or Shaolin Soccer. Great vid as always. Thank you, Loading Minecraft, Star Wars, and more. Dude, we finally found common ground on one, huh? You've asked me for like 6 or 7 things now I can never deliver because they were usually sports based or just something that I couldn't get into. And you suggested one of my favorite movies ever, Groundhog Day. I saw this movie in the theater with my parents, obviously, when it came out. I shouldn't say obviously because I'm sure this would be like a cult hit, which would probably show in several theaters during Groundhog Day, but I saw it when it was actually released. And I lived in Boise, Idaho at the time. I'm an LA guy, and born here, live here now and everything, but I bounced around, and one time I was in Boise and wound up seeing Groundhog Day, and I think they have a Chinese theater over there, a very cool, architecturally cool building, and it was a great time. It was one of my best memories, actually, and I love this movie, and yeah, I'm glad we can, you know what I was going to say? Talking to you still, Loading Minecraft, Star Wars, and more. I actually looked at your channel and it made me laugh. You got some silly stuff on there. I like it. Keep doing what you're doing, man. Okay, let's get into Groundhog Day. This is going to be a big read, by the way. Still on my lunch break, so we'll see how far I can get. I don't even know if I'll be able to get through it, just so you can, I won't spare you. It's long. It's a long one. That's what she said. Here we go. Groundhog Day. Groundhog Day is a 1993 American fantasy comedy film directed by Harold Ramis. R.I.P. I'm already sad. With a screenplay by him and Danny Rubin. It stars Bill Murray, Andy McDowell, and Chris Elliott. Murray portrays Phil Connors, a cynical television weatherman covering the annual Groundhog Day event in Puxatawny, Pennsylvania, who becomes trapped in a time loop, forcing him to relive February 2nd repeatedly. The film also stars Stephen Tobolowsky, Brian Doyle Murray, Marita Garrity, Angela Patton, Rick Dukeman, Rick Overton, and Robin Duke. Rubin conceived the outline of Groundhog Day in the early 1990s. He wrote it as a spec script to gain meetings with producers for other work. That's interesting. It eventually came to the attention of Ramis, who worked with Rubin to make his idea less dark in tone and more palatable to a general audience by enhancing the comedy. After being cast, Murray clashed with Ramis over the script. Murray wanted to focus on the philosophical elements, whereas Ramis had concentrated on the comic aspects. That's interesting. Principal photography took place from March to June 1992, almost entirely in Woodstock, Illinois. Filming was difficult in part because of bitterly cold weather, but also because of the ongoing conflict between Ramis and Murray. Dude, this is already fascinating. Groundhog Day was considered a box office success on its release, earning over $105 million to become one of the highest grossing films of 1993. It also received generally positive reviews. Reviewers were consistent in praise for the film's successful melding of highly sentimental and deeply cynical moments, and for the philosophical message beneath the comedy. It received multiple award nominations and won a BAFTA award for Best Original Screenplay. For all its success, the film marked the end of Ramis and Murray's long collaborative partnership, which produced films like Caddyshack and Ghostbusters. The pair did not speak after filming until shortly before Ramis's death in 2014. The film was a showcase for Murray. Previously seen only as a comic actor, his performance led to more serious lead roles in critically acclaimed films. In the years since its release, the film has grown in esteem and is often considered to be among the greatest films of the 1990s and one of the greatest comedy movies ever made. It also had a significant impact on popular culture. The term Groundhog Day became part of the English lexicon, meaning a monotonous, unpleasant, and repetitive situation. The film has been analyzed as a religious allegory by Buddhism Buddhists, Christians, and Jews. Groundhog Day is also credited with the mainstream acceptance of comedy films featuring fantasy genre elements. In 2006, the United States Library of Congress selected the film for preservation in the National Film Registry. Groundhog Day has been adapted into a 2016 musical and a 2019 video game sequel. Groundhog Day, like father, like son. Those of you who watch this channel, what am I about to say? What am I about to say about messing up the last line in the first paragraph again? It's talk about Groundhog Day. Plot. On February 1st, television weatherman Phil Connors reassures his Pittsburgh viewers that an approaching blizzard will miss western Pennsylvania. Alongside his producer Rita Hansen and cameraman Larry, Phil travels to Punxsutawney for his annual coverage of the Groundhog Day festivities. He makes no secret of his contempt for the assignment, the small town, and the hicks who live there, asserting that he will soon be leaving his station for a new job. On February 2nd, Phil awakens in the Cherry Tree Inn to Sonny and Cher's I Got You Babe playing on the clock radio. He gives a half-hearted report on the Groundhog, Punxsutawney Phil, and the festivities. Contrary to his prediction, the blizzard strikes the area, preventing all travel out of Punxsutawney, and although he desperately searches for a way to leave, he is forced to spend the night in town. The next morning, Phil wakes once more to I Got You Babe and the same DJ banter on the radio. Phil experiences the previous day's events repeating exactly and believes he is experiencing deja vu. He again unsuccessfully attempts to leave the town and retires to bed. When he awakes, it is again February 2nd. Shouldn't that be awakens? When he awakened, it doesn't matter. It's again February 2nd. Phil gradually realizes that he is trapped in a time loop that no one else is aware of. He confides his situation to Rita, who directs him to a neurologist, who in turn directs him to a psychologist. Neither can explain his experiences. Phil gets drunk with locals Gus and Ralph and then leads police on a high-speed car chase before being arrested and imprisoned. The next morning, Phil awakens in the Cherry Tree Inn. That's interesting, they used awakens there. There we go. And all is right with the world. Realizing that there are no consequences for his actions, Phil begins spending loops indulging in binge eating, one-night stands, robbery, and other dangerous activities, using his increasing knowledge of the day's events and the town residents to manipulate circumstances to his advantage, just like everyone else would. Eventually, he focuses on seducing Rita, using the loops to learn more about her so he can try to sleep with her. No matter what steps he takes, Rita rebuffs his advances, particularly when Phil tells her he loves her. Rita asserts that he does not even know her. Phil gradually becomes depressed and desperate for a way to escape the loop. He commits suicide in a variety of ways, even kidnapping Punxsutawney Phil and driving them both off a cliff. That was a great scene. Each time he reawakens on February 2nd to I Got You Babe, he eventually tries to explain his situation to Rita again, using his detailed knowledge of the day to accurately predict events. Convinced, Rita spends the rest of the day's loop with Phil. She encourages him to think of the loop as a blessing instead of a curse. Lying on the bed together at night, Phil realizes that his feelings for Rita have become sincere. He wakes alone on February 2nd. Phil decides to use his knowledge of the loop to change himself and others. He saves people from deadly accidents and misfortunes and learns to play the piano, sculpt ice, and speak French. Regardless of his actions, he is unable to save a homeless old man from death. During one iteration of the loop, Phil reports on the Groundhog Day festivities with such eloquence that other news crews stop working to listen to his speech, amazing Rita. Phil continues his day helping the people of Punxsutawney. That night, Rita witnesses Phil's expert piano-playing skills as the adoring townsfolk regale her with some stories of his good deeds. Impressed by his apparent overnight transformation, Rita successfully bids for him at a charity bachelor auction. Phil carves an ice sculpture in Rita's image and tells her that no matter what happens, even if he is doomed to continue waking alone each morning forever. He wants her to know that he is finally happy because he loves her. They retire to Phil's room. Phil wakes the next morning to "I got you, babe," but finds Rita is still in bed with him and the radio banter has changed. It is now February 3rd. Phil tells Rita that he wants to live in Punxsutawney with her. Cast. Really quickly, Bill Murray as Phil Connors, Andy McDowell as Rita Hansen, Chris Elliott as Larry the cameraman. Funny dude, Chris Elliott. Stephen Tobolowsky as Ned Ryerson. Brian Doyle Murray as Buster Green. Marita Garrity as Nancy Taylor. Angela Patton as Miss Lancaster. Rick Dukeman as Gus. I remember Rick Dukeman. He did stand-up comedy as well. He was in Gremlins 2, I think, as well. Rick Overton as Ralphs. Robin Duke as Doris the waitress. As well as the main cast. Groundhog Day features Ken Hudson Campbell as the man in the hotel hallway. David Pascasi as Phil's psychiatrist, and Richard Hensel and Rob Riley as the radio hosts, waking Phil every morning. Hendon Walsh and Michael Shannon portray the newly married couple Debbie and Fred. Les Podwell plays the homeless old man, and Rod Sell appears as a Groundhog Day official. Director Harold Ramis cameos as a neurologist. Punxsutawney Phil is portrayed by a groundhog known as Scooter. I love it. Production, starting with concept and original draft. The original idea for Groundhog Day came to writer Danny Rubin in 1990. He had moved to Los Angeles to work as a screenwriter. While waiting in a theater for a film to start, he was reading Anne Rice's book, The Vampire Lestat. Rubin began musing about vampiric immortality and what one would do with their time if it was limitless. He reasoned that vampires were like normal people who did not need to adhere to ordinary rules or moral boundaries. He questioned if and when immortality would become boring or pointless, and how a person would change over time, especially if they were incapable of substantial change. He singled out men he deemed to be in arrested development who could not outlive their adolescence. That's great. Having recently sold his first script for what would become the thriller film Hear No Evil, his agent prompted him to develop a calling card script that he could use to gain meetings with producers. Rubin began work on his idea of a man changing over eternal life, but quickly realized that the idea was impractical because of the expense of depicting historical and future events. Very smart. At this point, Rubin recalled a brief story concept he had written 2 years earlier that followed a man who would wake every morning to find it was the same day repeating. Rubin married the two ideas to create the outline for Groundhog Day. By portraying eternity as a repeating cycle instead of a straight line through history, he eliminated the production cost of constantly changing settings. Brilliant. He believed that the repetition also offered him more dramatic and comedic possibilities. Rubin opened a calendar and picked the next nearest holiday, February 2nd, Groundhog Day. He saw it as a date with story potential because it was a recognized holiday without much widespread attention. Rubin believed that people were vaguely aware of the holiday on which a groundhog predicts the coming of spring. Even so, he believed few people outside Pennsylvania were aware that the actual festivities take place in the small town of Punxsutawney, something he became aware of through a writing job for a local phone company. Setting the story in Punxsutawney provided a small area in which to trap Phil Connors, while reporting on the event gave the character a reason to visit. Rubin took the main character's name from Punxsutawney Phil. He hoped the film could become a perennial holiday favorite like It's a Wonderful Life and A Charlie Brown Christmas. Well, I'll say he achieved that. The man is a genius. Rubin spent 8 weeks working on the story, 7 making notes to define the rules and characters, and 1 writing the script. He struggled to establish a cause for the time loop, considering technological, magical, and celestial origins. He considered these methods interchangeable and felt the cause was unimportant and could detract from the story elements he wanted to focus on. Rubin said that the lack of explanation made Phil's situation more relatable, as none of us knows exactly how we got stuck here either. He chose to begin the story in medias res, I don't know what that means, with Phil already caught in the time loop. Perhaps I'll mouse over that just to see what we get. In medias res means a narrative work beginning in medias res opens in the midst of the plot. Often exposition is bypassed in film. Often exposition is bypassed and filled in gradually through dialogue, flashbacks, or description of past events. For example, Hamlet begins after the death of Hamlet's father. Characters make reference to King Hamlet's death without. Right, okay, I get it. That's very cool to understand, though. Learn something new. With Phil already being caught in the time loop in this case. The first scene included Phil waking to "I Got You, Babe," predicting the radio host banter and the actions of the hotel patrons, and attacking a pedestrian outside. Rubin thought this would intrigue an audience trying to understand how and why he is doing these things. He chose "I Got You, Babe" because it used a lot of repeating lines and was about love, which he felt were thematically resonant aspects. That's fascinating. Right down to the song choice. He likened his original script to the 1949 British black comedy film Kind Hearts and Coronets, particularly the flippant way in which film's multiple suicides are shown. Rubin did not initially write the film as a broad comedy, considering it more whimsical. He found that the funnier elements were the easiest to think of. One of the earliest scenes he wrote was about Phil using his ever-increasing knowledge to seduce women. Loops were also dedicated to Phil seeing how far he could get outside of Puxatawny. Inevitably, he was always returned to the town. Even so, the script focused much more on Phil's loneliness. He breaks the loop only after realizing that there are other lonely people and that he can do good deeds to make them happier. Scenes in the finished film happened much earlier in Rubin's script, such as Phil driving over a cliff. The passage of time was also more distinct. Phil would track it by reading one page of a book per day, reaching his low point when he realizes he has run out of books. That is an eternity. The original ending also featured a twist. Phil breaks his loop and then confesses his love to Rita. The perspective then becomes Rita's. She rejects Phil's advance because she is not ready for love and gets trapped in a loop of her own. Jesus, that guy went dark, huh? Development. Rubin's agent used the script to arrange meetings with producers. Although it did not sell, the meetings generated other work for him. In 1991, after his agent left the industry, Rubin distributed the Groundhog Day script in an effort to secure a new representative. It came to the attention of Richard Lovett at Creative Arts Agency. Lovett said that he could not represent Rubin, but passed the script to his own client, Harold Ramis. By the early 1990s, Ramis had begun moving away from involvement in the anti-establishment and anti-institutional comedies such as Caddyshack and National Lampoon's Vacation that had defined his earlier career. While Ramis had success in front of the camera and in creative roles like writing, his last directorial effort, Club Paradise, had been a critical and commercial failure. He wanted to direct an unusual project and was particularly interested in comedies about redemption and discovering one's purpose in life. Rubin was aware of Ramis's previous work, having watched him in film and television. Ramis admitted that he did not laugh while reading Rubin's script. He was interested in the underlying spirituality and romance present, but thought it needed more humor. The pair discussed the core ideas in the script, raising parallels between it and the concepts of Buddhism and reincarnation. They also discussed whether it was ethical for Superman, a superhuman being with the power to save lives of countless people and prevent disasters, to effectively waste time on adventures with his partner Lois Lane. Rubin's script became the subject of two offers, one arranged by Ramis through Columbia Pictures that would grant his project a higher budget, but at the cost of creative control, and a smaller independent studio that offered a lower budget of $3 million. Ramis's deal. As expected, the studio wanted changes. Writing. Rubin admitted to becoming defensive about the studio's changes. He was concerned that they would remove what he saw as innovative plot points and turn it into a generic comedy film. Ramis supervised the rewrite, tasked with balancing Rubin's desire for originality and the studio's demand for a broad comedy. The pair loosely used the Kubler-Ross model of the 5 stages of grief, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance as an outline. Ramis imagined himself in Phil's situation and the things he would do and feel in the same cycle of entrapment. The pair spent weeks revising the script. Ramis suggested that Rubin's original ending with Rita trapped in her own loop be removed. He felt that audiences would dislike this as it offered no catharsis. Thank you, Harold. You're awesome. Were awesome, still are awesome. Similarly, he felt it was important to retain the story's darker elements, such as Phil's suicides, as these compensated for the necessary sentimental moments. Rubin delivered a fresh draft on February 2nd, 1991. He was contractually permitted to write another draft, but the studio had Ramis take over, bringing Rubin's involvement to an end. Ramis took Rubin's new draft and began his solo rewrite. He found the sentimentality and sincerity completely opposed to everything he had learned to do as a comedian, and deliberately tempered the sweeter moments with a cynical and grouchy tone. Ramis reorganized the script into a mainstream 3-act narrative. He emphasized Phil's smug attitude as a means of distancing himself from others, giving him a defined story arc as a classic comedic lead character deserving of his punishment. Ramis liked Rubin's concept of starting with the loop in progress, but associate producer Whitney White suggested starting the film before the loop begins because she thought it would be more interesting for the audience to see Phil's initial reaction to his predicament, and I agree with that. I love that choice. She made the good call on that one, I think. It also contributes more to a comedic tale, whereas the other version, where we learned about earlier, where the character is already in the situation and they rely on the exposition and backstory to tell the tale, a la Memento, right? So it would be a more psychological film with the other approach rather than this comedic romantic thing. So that's a great contribution on her part, yeah. Ramis also removed Rita's boyfriend Max and introduced, then removed, Phil's executive producer Gil Hawley. This draft features more scenes focused on Phil's sexual conquests and removed some content deemed more mean-spirited, like Phil asking Rita to be his love slave. The situation was reversed in the final version of the film, in which Rita buys Phil at the bachelor auction, claiming that she owns him. Phil's journeys outside Punxsutawney were excised, as Ramis did not want his audience becoming too focused on what the rules of the loop were, and felt that keeping the story within the town made it more claustrophobic. I agree. Phil's expositional narration was removed as well. Also excised were more scenes of Phil's later good deeds, and the clever methods he used to prevent accidents while making the most efficient use of his time. For example, Phil puts a large rock in a road to stop a truck delivering fish that a restaurant patron would have later choked on. Where Rubin's original script had been more sermonic and deprecating, Ramis made the tone more optimistic. 2 versions of a scene with Phil and Rita in a diner from Rubin's original script and Ramis's rewrite exemplify the shifts of emphasis toward Phil's smugness and the romantic core of the film. And you can go online and check this out if you want to. I don't actually want to paraphrase, but Rubin's original script is on the left and Ramis's is on the right. It was Ramis's version that attracted Murray to the project, though Murray and Ramis immediately clashed over its tone. Murray wanted to focus on the philosophical elements. Ramis countered that it was meant to be a comedy. The studio was happier with Ramis's draft, believing that its changes made it more appealing to audiences. Columbia Pictures rehired Rubin to assess the script and provide notes. Rubin returned the script with pages of honest and sometimes sarcastic notes. In response, Murray recommended fully rehiring Rubin to assist on the script. The studio refused to greenlight the project without making explicit why Phil becomes trapped. Producer Trevor Albert described a Columbia executive saying, "Why does the day repeat? I like it, but I don't understand why he gets stuck in this loop." Rubin had conceived of several causes for the loop, including a jilted lover placing a curse on Phil and a mad scientist's invention malfunctioning. Albert and Ramis worked with Rubin to appease the studio while agreeing to place the scenes too late in the shooting schedule to be filmed, and have forced to shoot it to simply not include it in the film. As the conflict between Ramis and Murray continued, Ramis sent Rubin to work on the script with Murray. He believed it was the only way to stop Murray's constant early morning phone calls. When Ramis called to check on their progress, Murray asked Rubin to pretend he was not there. The pair visited the 1992 Punxsutawney Groundhog Day Festival to get a better understanding of the event, remaining discreet and not revealing the reason for their visit. They then spent weeks working together in New York City revising the script. Rubin found Murray's more laid-back approach to writing frustrating. They were still working on the script a month before filming began, bringing it back closer to Rubin's original. That's funny. So both of them had a hard time with Murray. Rubin and Ramis then collaborated on an additional rewrite. The pair worked on individual sections and then edited each other. Ramis then spent a few days refining it into the screenplay. Rubin recommended that they not include any references to the 1990s or any specific period to allow it to remain timeless. Again, a brilliant decision. Rubin has said that the final film largely resembles his script. He did regret the loss of a scene between film and a 14-year-old boy in which the child behaves like Phil did at the start of the film, contrasting with Phil's character development by that point in the script. That would have been very good also. A few scenes were written but not limited, including Phil praying at a church, gambling, and a scene Murray personally vetoed of Phil stripped naked to force an elderly man out of a swimming pool. Although the script was complete, it continued to undergo changes during filming. Casting, and I hope this isn't the last of it, but I'm gonna have to get going here pretty soon. The traffic's really picking up and it's starting to drown me out. Casting for the role of Phil Connors, Chevy Chase, Tom Hanks, and Michael Keaton were also considered. Wow. Hanks was Ramis's first choice, but he rejected the offer, rationalizing that he was typecast in portraying nice people, and the audience would be expecting his inevitable redemption, whereas Murray was such a miserable son of a bitch on and off screen that the outcome would be less predictable. How insightful is that on Hanks's part? Wow. That goes beyond the business. That's actually preserving the role for a better fit. Gee, dude. And the whole point was for Hanks to not be a nice guy because it's predictable, and here we are in reality, him being a nice guy in context of this role choice. You've got to be kidding me. Keaton said that the role of a wry, sardonic, glib character was a typical role for him, but that he simply did not understand the film. He later confessed regret in passing on the role. You think Phil was written as a younger man, but this was changed when it was determined that the appropriate comic actors were all older. Murray and Ramis had a long-standing friendship and collaborative relationship, having worked together since 1974 on many projects and 5 films to great success, including Meatballs, Caddyshack, and Ghostbusters. Rubin did not write the character as particularly nasty, aiming for a normal person in an extra-normal situation. In casting Murray, why am I having such a difficult time with that line? Phil was portrayed as more cynical, sarcastic, and detached, but not so malicious that audiences would no longer support him. Rubin wanted Kevin Kline for the part, believing Murray did not have the necessary acting ability. Oh, shots fired. Ramis reassured Rubin, saying, "Don't worry, worry, that is what Bill Murray can do. He can be the nasty and still make you like him. He can be that nasty, I should say, and still make you like him. McDowell agreed, saying, he's a jerk, but he makes you laugh. Albert auditioned comedians for the role of Rita, but determined that someone vying with Murray at comedy would be detrimental. Rita was not intended to trade witty comments with Phil, but instead to offer human warmth and intelligence. McDowell was cast because she was thought to bring an effortless grace suited to Rita's character. McDowell tried to adapt Murray's natural improvisation in scenes. She believed that her character's humor comes from her honesty without being outlandish. Singer Tori Amos was also considered for the role. Very interesting. Tobolowsky was hired after delivering an overwhelmingly obnoxious portrayal during his audition. Michael Shannon, who portrays prospective groom Fred, made his on-screen acting debut in the film. He spent much of the shoot in the background of the diner scene, as they wanted all the actors in their places, even if the camera was not focused on them. A live groundhog, given the name Scooter, was used to portray Punxsutawney Phil. Punxsutawney officials, upset that their town was not used for filming, refused to allow the real Punxsutawney Phil to appear in the film. Very funny. The groundhog itself was not specially bred for use on film and was trapped in the wild near Illinois a few weeks before filming. Interesting. Let me see how much is left, because you can hear all of this traffic behind us, and I might have to just call it right here and pick back up at another time. Yeah, guys, I'm so sorry. We're not even a third of the way through, but we will pick it up at another time. I have to get going. You can hear all the traffic behind me, so it's a great read, though. I really love it. You know what? I think I am going to revisit it, and we will pick back up on filming. No, not filming, actually. Did we even get past that? Pre-production. All right. So we're marking it here for the future. We got to pick back up on Groundhog Day pre-production. Production wanted to use a quintessential American town. Man, this is good. Okay, we'll stop for right now. We'll pick it back up. All right. I will talk to you guys in the comments. All right. Yeah, I don't know if it's going to actually pick up OBS in the thing, but here it is. Yeah, talk to you guys then. Bye.